and welcome everyone to this episode of Breakpoint. The topic for today is controlling your SaaS sprawl with a SaaS security platform. The number of SaaS applications that an organization needs to deal with today has been growing exponentially recently. And this leads to a condition called as a SaaS sprawl. Now, this also results in various security challenges for not just the security teams, but also the engineering teams that are involved and the organization as a whole. And there are also a lot of data points from the business sensitive information to the user sensitive information that starts percolating down to these applications. To discuss this highly nuanced topic today, we have Abhishek Anand. He's the co-founder of Koala Lab. He's a technology leader who built housing.com as a CTO and most recently built the cloud infra at White Hat Junior, where he led both the SRE and the platform teams. Hi, I'm Neelu, a technical security enthusiast and your host. I welcome you to the Breakpoint Security Podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore the depths of defensive security. We learn the methods and techniques that the smart security teams are using to solve practical security challenges today and innovate their way into the future. Welcome to Breakpoint, Abhishek.
Hey, and thanks for having me and giving me this chance to speak on this topic. I'm working on this topic currently, and would love to talk.
Great. So, as we understand the SaaS sprawl side of things first for all our listeners, to put it in simple terms, essentially, we have started using so many SaaS applications. Many of us, to oversimplify this, actually, we keep using products like, for example, the Google suite of products, Google Drive, or Microsoft Office 365, or things like Slack for development. And there are so many such products that we use in our organization today. And while most of the security teams, we keep focusing on the applications that we are developing and the APIs that we are working on. Many times what happens is we forget about or basically overlook the challenges that come with something like having so many SaaS applications and keep pushing our data on a day-to-day basis on these applications. Now, one aspect of this is that since we are using these products on a daily basis, there is a lot of business sensitive information also that we keep pushing into these applications. And we often tend to forget about it, or at least as long as the access control is provided, or it is tied to our SSO, we are fine with it. But I wanted to first understand from, in your opinion, Abhishek, how deep is the problem of SaaS sprawl?
Yeah. So rightly said, Neil, that this whole problem of SaaS, like the increasing use of SaaS, initially it started with simpler apps, very essential apps. But now for efficiency, you need to use more and more tools that make you that aid you to do your work more efficiently. And in the same spirit, people look for tools that will make them more efficient, and they start using it without understanding the full consequences of what it can do. Obviously they have the best intent in mind. So as you see, larger organizations, for example, around 800 to 1,000 when SaaS applications are being used on a daily basis. And when I say these SaaS applications, they are essentially having the same data that are residing within your databases or microservices, the same sensitive data. Applications like Salesforce will have your customer data that you want to use. And how that Salesforce is configured is very important. Similarly, G Suite, you have your Google Drive that enable you to use Sheets, Docs, whatever. But at the same time, are you keeping that secure? Is there any PII data residing there? And is there any secure data that is, let's say, even not public, but accessible with a link? That is in itself is a security risk, right? Anyone with the link can open that. That is lingering out there for anyone to just stumble upon and it's out, right? So So there's a whole SaaS thing, like the number of SaaS application that is being used is like increasing and increasing for productivity. But as a side effect, we see security suffering at times. Of the security aspect, which is generally overlooked, uh, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a joke, but it's almost always overlooked. But yeah, it is generally overlooked, I think. And it's very clear why, because we're looking at our data, trying to secure that in our own databases, our own applications. But then there is this huge attack surface, as if I may call it, on the
Right.
SaaS side as well. So when we think of the SaaS applications, and if you think about it, right, from a security standpoint, the first thing that strikes you is the part where there are a lot of SaaS applications being used in your organization. Now, think of the technical challenges, right? The first thing is that there are configurations to each of these applications. Each of these SaaS products that we are using also come with their own set of settings, their own configurations, which could be secure or insecure. And on top of that, there is a permutation of these that could happen, right? With a number of applications being used by a number of departments. You don't know what kind of data they are accessing or need to access through that or not, or need to be prohibited. So there is this whole permutation and combination of misconfigurations essentially that can happen because of the SaaS sprawl. Now, since you come with that experience of building a SaaS security platform, I wanted to know from you, how did you tackle that challenge? Because this one area itself is a big challenge.
Right. So to tackle any problem, the first thing that you need to do is identify it. Like what exactly is the problem? So if you look at the whole SaaS spectrum, like generally people think if you put a SSO on top of it, like if you manage the onboarding and offboarding properly, your SaaS security is taken care of. But generally that is not the case. What happens is like the sensitive information that you use, SaaS tools enable you to leverage their functionality to complete the task that you need to do your business, right? So, for example, for GitHub, a public repository and private repository both are like valid use case. But something with a sensitive information or your private code base, right? A public repository is a disaster. So this is a very naive example, but this is what like comes under the umbrella of configuration. Like however you are using the each and every aspect of your SaaS tool, like that right? Have you configured it properly? And another thing about SaaS is it is being used by each and every member in your team, in your organization. Anyone, even in the sales, will be using a bunch of SaaS tools. In marketing, they will be using a bunch of SaaS tools. Everyone need to use these tools to be effective, to be productive. Uh, so what happens is generally like in the era of cloud, right? When cloud was new, like you had this thing, you are on cloud, you are secure. But after this SolarWinds thing that happened, it opened people eyes that like no, you have to be aware of what you are. You need to be like you need to like I would say honor the attack vectors out there, deal with them, like build for them, and so that you can like be ready for any kind of attack that is going to happen. So same is with the SaaS, right? So you need to understand what kind of risk it can pose, right? And how misconfigurations can lead to. And in cloud, like a good engineering culture can give you some leeway into it. Like a good engineering culture can give you like you can deal many of the security challenges related to cloud with that because it's mostly the engineers and that to a select privileged access engineers have access to the cloud can make changes to the cloud, but over here your whole organization is using it. Like someone is in marketing, they will just need to know how I can do it best, like how I can get the most money out of every penny I am investing, right? That's their target. So for them, like understanding all this or going into the like the details of how to use a particular tool like it's expecting too much out for that. So that is kind of the inspiration for building a security tool or a security platform that is horizontal in nature, will cut across all the teams in the organization. And that is where the need for a SaaS security platform comes from. Going into the one of the most common aspect, and that is found in almost all SaaS applications, is the misconfiguration. There are other attack vectors as well, but misconfiguration being the most common one, and very easily you can go wrong with it. Uh, if I borrow an example from the uh, cloud AWS, for example, S3 by default gives you a public bucket, right? That is the biggest
That is a
misconfiguration.
favorite example for all of us. But yeah.
Yeah, like everyone asks the same question: why AWS? Why you want uh, a private S3 bucket, right? By default, if I take like a conscious decision, then it's fine. But I just created a bucket, put some object into it. Now it is out there for the whole world to see it. Same is true for example, Google Drive by default has like anyone with a link can access it, right? So if that is enabled, like you mistakenly like send it to someone, that person sent it to someone else, and it ends up in the wrong hands, and all of a sudden that data is out there in public. So yeah, similarly, I will say these are like very basic configurations that I'm like talking about. The more serious ones, let's say in context of G Suite, can be like you can G Suite provides you with an option that you can configure whether how to scan for a PII data in any of the files in your drive. Like if someone is sharing a PII data, you can control that. You can stop them from sharing that. You can stop them from sharing it outside the organization, for example, or downloading that data, right? So you can do all that. But again, if not configured, it is of no use. Really. So it is very important to understand the exact use case and then apply those configurations for that. One example that comes to my mind in this regard is Salesforce data leak that happened with NHS, uh, where like all the vaccination information that they had, right? It was like public by default. So anyone can put go there and scrape all that data. And it was a simple misconfiguration that was a portal that should not be public, and it was in public. Right? So anyone can go and scrape all that data. So uh, so yeah, I'll say misconfigurations are everywhere. And as I said, like with thousands of apps, thousands of SaaS apps, it's very like difficult to understand each and every application in detail and configure it properly. So yeah, that gives us the inspirations to build a SaaS security platform. And moreover, I'll say you use a SaaS application to speed up your like journey so that you don't need to build it. But what good that will be if you need to go in depth of that, understand it fully, and then go ahead with it. So right, so that is why there is a need of a SaaS security platform that we are discussing over here. That you can quickly gives you the confidence that the tool that you are using it the right.
Yeah. But when you operationalize this, so I was just thinking of, there are so many configuration that you're thinking of. Are you actually prioritizing in terms of detecting these issues or these misconfigurations? Are you actually prioritizing the issues which are like of most impact, or for example external facing data, right? So that could be way more critical than something that's internal. Are you on technical terms actually prioritizing things with more impact than less, or you are overall taking everything in the same level?
No. So this is again a learning from the cloud world, CSPM. Like the CSPM world, I guess, started with Prowler, that open source project that everyone installs on their cloud.
Yeah.
And now it has evolved to reach the stage of Wiz and Orca that are like kind of understanding your whole cloud topology and then identifying the attack vectors, right? For example, if I have a like leaked AWS credentials or AWS credentials lying on my EC2 machine, that is not accessible to public, or there is no way you can reach that machine. That is not as big a threat as like a public facing machine running log4j, like the vulnerable version of log4j. That is much bigger threat. Like even though the other one can give you an admin privilege, like potentially. So what that tells us is like it's very important to prioritize the alerts, because if you look at it, company security maturity journey, they will first have no alerts. Then they will want to have alerts. Then all of a sudden they will have thousands of alerts. Actually, they didn't know what to do, and still they don't know what to pick and do. Right, like in the ocean of all the alerts. So that's when this new prioritization innovation came into picture. The industry evolved, and now everyone is talking about relevant alerts, relevant attack vectors. So same holds true for SaaS security platform as well. For example, something that can give you an immediate threat. For example, if I can see a secret lying in your GitHub repository, that is an immediate threat. That secret can like first leak inside the company and can make way to outside world. And if the bucket or if the repository is public, like all the more severe that just go and delete that secret. That need not be there. Right? So it's like just having the secret there is less, I will say, priority than having the secret and the repo is public as well. So yeah, you obviously need to do prioritization to make it effective. Otherwise, it will just become another tool that sends you thousands of emails, right? And like it's a classic example. Like for example, if you want to use an APM, right? If you set too aggressive scope for yourself, like I want all my requests to be served, my P99 to be less than 50 millisecond average. Like there will be some services that will keep sending you alerts every 10 minutes, right? So that is also a configuration issue, but of a different kind. But yeah, what you need to know is give me something actionable. Don't tell me this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong. What I should do? Can you tell me that something that should I do that will make my life a bit better than what it is today, right? And continue on this journey till you reach a stage that you can have like a good night of sleep, right? So that you are not always worried like this can go wrong, that can go wrong.
Yeah, well said. I think I was already thinking of 100 different jokes, but the language, first of all, just to tell our guests in this episode, we have, I think you are the first guest who is from the engineering side. I'm really happy to host you and looking forward to more such folks who can bring in that perspective, right? So when you were talking about tell me the solutions, not the problems, I realized how many different times I have heard that in environments where people just go with the problem statement, not with the solution, and are of course not, for example, sitting down with the developers to work on something. It happens many times from a security standpoint. I think one of the reasons that we are not the first class citizen everywhere, but that's beside the point. But talking of secrets, you were talking about secrets just now, and I wanted to also touch upon that as a big area. So it's not just secrets. I think in the second episode of season 1, we were talking about secret sprawl, and today we are talking about SaaS sprawl. So there we have talked about many kinds of secrets incidents in that episode. I would like the listeners to go and check that out. There are also many of those cases that are happening with respect to SaaS secrets as well. So until now, we had secrets for applications talking to our databases. Now we have these other secrets where we are talking to maybe, these other third-party APIs. We're talking to these SaaS applications. So all those secrets also come into play. Right. How does that look in terms of, and they are also becoming very common day by day. How do we ensure, so when you are building your SaaS security platform or in general, how do we take care and ensure the data security, the encryption requirements, and particularly with respect to secrets, which needs to be now managed in this or through this platform?
Right. So in case of in context of secret sprawl, SaaS secret sprawl is like a beast of in itself. Why I say that is because at other places, for example, databases, when you're dealing with databases or you are dealing with your cloud services or something hosted on cloud, those things are moving like at a very fast pace towards like zero trust. You can have like very short-lived secrets, just-in-time generate secrets and use those instead of transmitting a long-term secret every time, right? So in those cases, the whole I would say the ecosystem is moving towards a place where it is becoming more secure. Like for example, if I have to make call to a AWS service or a GCP service, I will have a machine role attached to my machine, and I can make that call behind the scenes. Like the instance metadata service will be called. They will get the token, which will be valid for some time only. Even if it gets in hand of someone, it will not be valid because it will be like you can lock it down to certain VPC. So all those things can happen. You can lock down your S3 to like be accessible just from the VPC endpoint. Not don't have a access ID or a secret key pair to access your S3. So those things can be done. Like there is a scope. You can move towards that. So while solving for that in case of SaaS, uh, like none of these things are there, right? For example, and there's a reason for that. Not every SaaS user is that tech savvy. They have to cater to the whole spectrum, right? Anyone wants to do a simple, let's say, video integration or SMS integration, they will want to do it. They don't want to go into the details of how can I integrate with a short-lived token or a certificate authentication, right? Or a secret.
Yeah.
So Twilio has to build a simple interface, but that comes at a cost. Like for example, now it's like a long-lived secret that like, in hands of someone until you know that it is with someone else. You won't even bother to change it,
Hmm.
but it is as effective as it is with you. It is not like cordoned off to a certain VPC or a certain network. It will be anyone can use it from any machine that, for example, can like break up loads of Twilio bills for you or any other service. Right. So, so why I use Twilio as an example? Because Twilio is a company that like that takes it very seriously. Like they will keep on scanning full of open source GitHub page bin and stuff like that to see if there is any secret, and they proactively try
Hmm.
to remove it. But at the same time, once they remove it, if you are not doing it properly, they will send a mail and remove it. Your services will stop. Right. So
Hmm.
this way that you will be affected, you will be impacted. So so to deal with such a scenario, what you need to do is like build a horizontal layer for yourself or something like that that can be used to kind of translate like that layer or that proxy can sit in between, can ensure that secrets are not being distributed everywhere. And
Hmm.
to from your service till that proxy, that authentication can be of whatever scheme you want it to have. It can be short-lived, certificate-based, signature-based, whatever you want to implement. And then that proxy can take care of all kind of authentication with the like the ultimate like the endpoint of the SaaS service, right? So that is the approach that we had taken at Byte, that whenever and to be to be honest, the whole issue arises from the Twilio leak itself. Someone during a hackathon picked the staging Twilio key, put
Hmm.
it in their hackathon project, made that GitHub public, GitHub or GitLab public under their own username. So no one was even aware, and that was lying in public. So and Twilio blocked that. That impacted our whole testing.
Hmm.
No one was able to test anything, no SMS was going, no OTP, so no login. So just a small thing can have that big an impact. Whole testing team was sitting at it. So to cater to that, what we did was we built this and can call it a SaaS vault. Because vault is generally used by companies, the HashiCorp vault
Yeah, yeah.
by companies for the similar purposes, where you can build a secret provider for any service. for any kind of tool. Over here, what you need to do is like take over the whole authentication and access, like which all services will have access to this service or this SaaS application, and how the authentication will take over that part. Put it in SaaS gateway kind of thing. That was another aspect that we did. That will take care of all kind of service or your internal application to a SaaS interaction. So that was our key contention to start with, and that we addressed that. And that layer, you like we were whitelisting like which all services can hit which all endpoints. Like not all services need to talk to Twilio, for example. Right? All services, need to talk to Salesforce. There were like dedicated microservices for those. So first layer is like kind of authorizing the microservices. Like you can talk to Twilio, you cannot talk to Twilio.
Yeah.
And the second layer was like, if you are authorized to do that, I will take like present me a proof of your identity, something like a signed certificate or signed job token, and I'll negotiate with Twilio. The proxy layer will negotiate with the end service to take care of the authentication. So this gave us the flexibility to like even like, like control the whole secret sprawl related to SaaS services at one place. So at any point of time, we wanted to rotate secrets. All we needed to do was rotate it one place. So all those policies can now be controlled at one place. So yeah, that enabled us to do a lot many things. And this was one of the like the cool features that came out of it was like no need to worry about these. Like, you start from like you take care of it, you solve it as a horizontal layer, and it was built in such a way that it's a simple proxy integration. So any new SaaS service can be onboarded in a day or so, even less. And yeah, you're good to go with it, and all the associated problems taken care.
Oh, this is amazing. I think I definitely have heard of the authentication authorization piece, that that this kind of integration brings about, and many times clients would, or organization would go ahead and do that, create that even from scratch if needed. But with respect to the secrets management, the rotation of all of this, these tokens always used to be a separate piece. I think it still is in many places. But it's great to hear that itself also was combined, and you've been able to take care of that. But with respect to, I think the other aspect which I was talking about, the data side of things, and in general looking at, because this is also one of the premise, right, of the sprawl, that there is a lot of data here and there all over the place. Now, how were you tackling that problem? I also wanted to know from the perspective of the traditional aspect, right? I mean, I think over a decade ago, when I actually started working in this field, we have been seeing something like DLP, right? It's a completely separate piece where you look at data loss prevention, and then there are different aspects that covers. How do you tackle that? How did you tackle that? Plus, if there is an organization that already has DLP in place, what is the additional benefit you think that you can build into such a platform, the SSP?
Great. So the primary function of an SSP would be first to check whether like DLP is also a SaaS, whether that is configured properly.
There's another SaaS.
Yeah. SaaS tool that you're using. So you need to ensure that is configured properly. That is covering all the data sources that you have, like, and most importantly, like for a like even a data leak or a SaaS tool, like exposing data, you first need to ascertain it is a sensitive data. So understanding the context, that is very important for a, like, if you are trying to solve it for a SaaS tool at a horizontal level, for a specific SaaS, if I pick it up, I will know like repository data will be confidential. Like I don't want it to be public. Otherwise, I will have a let's say if I have a Apache license on it, then yeah, I might want to have it in public. But otherwise, no, right? So that is pretty obvious. But on a general level, like identifying PII data that is going to be there, identifying any kind of sensitive information. And while we are talking about data, SaaS tools present another kind of risk for certain industries. For example, there are data residency laws for healthcare companies, for financial companies. So they have to keep the data in a certain geography itself. There are regulations surrounding that. Now, a developer won't know that, for example, or someone who is trying to achieve their task, let's say launch a market, they don't know that. They will find a pool to, they will just simply sign up on it. They will just achieve what they want to. But at the same time, this can lead to compromising with the compliance posture of the company. So that is also need to be taken care of. For example, which all SaaS tools you can or you cannot use is something that a company needs to know. Right? For example, whether the data, for example, if I'm using a logging service, whether the logs are residing in the country or in the allowed geography or not.
Yeah.
That I need to know.
These are regulatory requirements. Yeah.
Right. For example, let's say your send tool itself is sending data to some other geography that you are not allowed to. So that security tool is kind of making you insecure from compliance point of view. Right. So yeah, and the other example that I gave of a safe score. So if you are having some private information and that page or that setup is public, there needs to be a lot. Like people use Salesforce to put up these kind of platforms like quickly. Like I want to build something quickly. That's why I use Salesforce. Otherwise, I can have my product engineering design team working on it, right? But I want to enable my like marketing sales teams to put up something quickly, product team to put up something quickly and experiment with it or achieve something. So that is when like our SSP can detect like in this setup, this is a like PII data or a sensitive data that is there, and still this page is public, right? Like if I'm let's say building a normal EMI calculator kind of thing that you just put 2, 3 values and you get the EMI. That is sensitive information that can reside in public.
Yeah.
But how much EMI a person is paying, that cannot reside in public, right? So identifying those nuances and flagging those to the teams. Ultimately, they will have to take action because as a SaaS security platform, you cannot just go and put a blanket ban on it because that can lead to like loss of business or some disruption in the business function. So that is why sending an alert, bringing it into the notice of the right people. That is the role a SaaS security platform can play. And yeah, that's what it should do. You are leaking sensitive information. Are you aware of it?
Right. I think it's explained very easily, but we have been on in various instances, right, helping organizations even classify that data. It's not that easy for an existing organization because there are hundreds and thousands of data points. And yeah, I mean, but I think as a concept, it unifies a lot of these aspects also, which also helps the regulatory side of things, which is becoming very common in all the countries now, not just in US or in Europe. So
right. And like right now there is a rise in like data cataloging efforts, or for example, like metadata services that defines what kind of data you're storing where. So SSP can extend that umbrella to your SaaS services as well. You connect the dots that this data is residing here, and this is sensitive. You should take care of it. And a SaaS tool have a like just by knowing that this data is on GitHub, I have a lot more context. What kind of data this is? Right? A high entropy string on GitHub is most probably a secret.
Yeah.
Right. In a log file, it can be just a random log or a random log. So that's why you have more context over here to determine like what kind of information or to at least reduce the number of false positives that you are generating.
Yeah. I think you are automating a lot of common sense that way also, which you otherwise would have to do manually. Just to put it very, very simply for the listeners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you have to extend this common sense to thousand unknown.
No, no. Don't even try. Okay. No, but yeah, I think totally understood. There was this aspect which has been talked about even in traditionally, right? When we had on-prem systems, and then now we have cloud, and then we have so many SaaS apps. Things have changed in the meanwhile, but we have always talked about it, which I wanted to touch upon, which is the shadow IT part. And we always never knew the entire picture from the IT organization side of things. And that happens because when you grow beyond a certain size as an organization, you would have these. We used to have those applications earlier. Now we have so many of these services, these APIs. Many times, different versions of the APIs are created, and you don't know what is being used for what. We don't have that visibility, and I'm extending that to SaaS as well, right? So SaaS could also have, you're talking about hundreds of applications and hundreds of SaaS apps that an organization might have. And then there could also be a time when we don't have a visibility of a SaaS app, for example, we onboarded years ago, and it's not being used anymore, or it has the team itself has been dissolved and has moved somewhere else, and we're not using that. There could be a number of such applications. So how is the SaaS security platform, is it able to actually deal with problems like this of visibility, being able to keep track of these kind of applications?
So a certain aspect of it is not fully solved. I'll say, uh, the most talked about, like while talking to security practitioners, like many of them gave the same example that their tech team, they were building a new microservice. They did the whole VR diagram thing, and they wanted to have a full graphical representation. So DB diagrams, they went to DB diagrams and put it out there. And by default, it was public. So now their whole DB schema is in public. Right. So simple things like these, like DB schema in itself might not be that harmful, but with a combination of things and having understanding of someone's schema can
Hmm.
a lot of further to a creative person to do what to do with it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So things like that. Similarly, another example that I can think of in this regard is the Miro. Like people do their mind mapping on Miro board, all things, but like by default it's public. Like
Right.
we don't have the enterprise version, and that is where a shadow IT problem translates to a shadow SaaS problem. Right? For the shadow IT, it was like we onboarded a new tool without going through the full scrutiny and all. And the like then leakage of data is more like a shadow SaaS problem. And to add to that, it can, in cases, also lead to compliance issues. So you might be using an application that is not, like, let's say, data residency law that is not following or not
Hmm.
compliant with, right? Or sensitive data is being dumped in public. Like, if you want to do like anything that's like so much of sensitive information is there on page bill, for example.
Yeah, that's like also one of the go-to SaaS applications. One of the go-to applications for attackers when
Right.
we are looking for good information. Yeah.
Just on GitHub, that will be like
Hmm. Hmm.
proprietary code might be public, or something like that. It all keeps happening. Just that you have to identify. So whatever comes under the umbrella of, for example, whatever you are able to identify, security practitioners are able to bring that to a proper channel that I will take care of the required compliances. For example, if I have a software complaint, I would want my all the SaaS services that I want a stock report from them as well, right? Similarly, if I have data residency, again, the same example, I would want the SaaS tool to comply with that. So I will do all those checks while onboarding the SaaS application. So once it comes via the proper channel, it's okay. But when it is a shadow SaaS, what happens is people just on their own start like onboarding a SaaS application. They will go and sign up with their company email and start using it. Even that can be addressed. You can see which all company emails were used to sign up for what all apps. You can do some like intercept mails. There are endpoint security, mail endpoint security solutions as well that can help you with that. But when people do that, like what they have observed is employees then go to the extent of using their personal email, and that's where it falls outside of your umbrella.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, right.
right. And like bringing back that culture of having like a tool that is monitoring all your activity, logging all your activity on your machine. That that sounds too corporate or like
Intrusive.
intrusive and not too for startups, right?
Hmm.
Until unless there is a compliance stick in front of you, you will not go to do that.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no ROI also for them, like to have an
Right.
entire system built to just look into endpoints.
Right. So that is something that is, I'll say, still outside the umbrella of a system. Like there are certain aspects, like certain signals you can use. For example, you can use some DNS records to check what all tools you are configuring or something. For example, if you have a postman collection, if you find a public postman collection
Mm-hmm.
pointing to a domain that you a company own, you can flag that. So, but there is not a concrete solution per se. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That will cover all the cases. But yeah, like people will keep on coming with innovative solutions, and some they cover most of it, if not all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's with some of the areas in security, there's just a lot of subjectivity and there are a lot of context with every thing, and even those that you come up with can be bypassed. So this keeps happening over a
Right.
period of time. But I think the sheer number of controls that you already have, I was just thinking in security, we are not used to having a single product for so many things. We are used to having so many products for a few things. So okay, so I think that solves a lot of things. But I think I wanted to jump onto the operational side, which I think is slightly more exciting also, in terms of obviously we have been talking about technical aspects, right? And how do you tackle that as and when you as a security team is building such a platform. Now I want to understand from your perspective, when you start building such a platform, how was it for you? Like how many APIs did you build it for initially, or how many SaaS apps basically you wanted to cover? Was there like a pilot kind of a thing where you started small? What were the stages? How did you scale this, going forward?
Right. So what we are the problem, the whole SaaS security platform that we're talking about is kind of an inspiration from the project that we did uh, at White Hat. Over there, the problem was more around communication between an internal application and a SaaS. That was the problem that we started to solve. Like when we started, we that was the problem in mind that we have to solve it. So for that, what we saw was it can be like the problem was not just security; it was a problem on all facets. For example, a particular service running out of bands or throwing uh, errors, and that was being utilized by multiple teams, but no one has the ownership of that. So the buck stops at platform team. That was my team at that point of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we need to have a platform like solution for that. So that's when this whole SaaS gateway thing came into picture. So like as you know, like platform team, so many projects, very little, less number of people. So we
Mm-hmm.
so we decided to do a very quick project around it, at least to test out that it is simple or we will be able to get a good ROI from it. So what we did was we pick off the shelf components like AWS API Gateway and like using the Lambda integration that it offers. And it was like you can coordinate it up to a VPC. So we leverage that. And like all the header manipulation, etc., can be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We took that, and in parallel, what we did was we built a standardized HTTP client library using an existing library. We just built a wrapper over it and started replacing with that library all the services, and that gave us we built a switch inside that can give us like directly communicate with the SaaS service or communicate via the SaaS gateway. So that was the switch that we had. And then what we did was slowly started integrating one SaaS service and started sending traffic via the gateway. And
Okay.
and on top of that, like header manipulation enabled us to take care of authentication, for example, and authentication and the initial, like the first handshake between the gateway and the microservice can be done in a lot many ways. So we did that. So ultimately, with the help of this and sending all the metrics that were being generated from metrics, logs, access, generated from the gateway, the SaaS gateway, we send it to Datadog, that was the log and APM tool that we were using. And it helped us like discover a lot many problems with our integrations, not just security. So, for example, which all SaaS tools are like not adhering to their SLAs. Like they told us they will be of this much of time, but we are getting so many 5x's from them, right? Like many times you start with a newer ones as well, which are not that mature. So, but we started discovering those problems. The time that their APIs were taking, like when we were having our like peak load, they started to like breach the P99s that they had promised them. So we got to know about those. Then like tallying like the number of calls that we have made and number of calls that they received, or like that gave us confidence that it is us only that is making that call, no one else. Because we were confident that the gateway can only be accessed from the VPC. No, like, so we got that confidence as well. Like then we got got to know what kind of data is being posted to which service. So we got visibility into that as well. So we put up a small data dashboard for it for all the SaaS services. We like by the end we integrated around 25, 30 various SaaS services that we were integrating with. And we were able to put that. And on top of this, only the whole SaaS vault was built, which was like taking care of the authentication. So as you can see, mm, this was a platform and on which a new SaaS app we could easily onboard in a matter of few hours to a day at max, right? And that gave us visibility, control of like any microservice interacting with an external SaaS app. So generally, you can call it like in technical terms, a terminating gateway. You don't want your workloads to have direct access to internet. You want it to go via terminating gateway. So this like we were not ultimately able to implement it during my tenure, but the plan was to ultimately cut off all kind of internet access from all the workloads that were running, so that even if someone is able to get access, they will not have a NAT gateway to set it to their own. Reaches your machine, they will not be able to send it or download it for themselves. So yeah, that was the like the implementation piece. And as for the performance part, you see what we were doing was pretty basic stuff. It was more like some header manipulation, proxy, manipulating the body a bit to adhere to the to just accomplish the you can say authentication bit. So ultimately, the performance impact was next to nothing. Like was the time spent used to be in microseconds. Like at worst, a millisecond or two that will extra will be added. So there was no performance penalty per se, and since it was like a managed API gateway by AWS, it scaled beautifully. We never had to face any problem on the performance part, and it was built from that point of view itself, because we were not building something that we will release step by step. We had to replace or get in between an existing system. So all the aspects like security or performance were taken into consideration right from the beginning. And talking about the security aspect that led us to the whole building the vault piece, it also made me realize that here I am talking about the controlled interaction between an application and a SaaS app. Like everything has been manually scripted to happen in a particular fashion. And then so many things can happen, right? But for the rest, like 80% of the other apps which were like having manual interaction and which were like we were using with off the shelf configuration. So what all can go wrong is like that's a crazy nightmare thought that and kind of became an inspiration that this is much bigger problem that needs to be solved and needs to be solved in a similar fashion as a horizontal, not like every time I need to buy buy a new SaaS app, I need to learn about all its configuration and learn about how to run it efficiently.
No, I think, I mean, as I'm listening to you, obviously I've seen, I think platform team is generally the best team to work with when you are in a number of, service team, because it generally what is not anyone's problem is platform team's problem. That's how things are with respect to security. And that's also the most exciting team to work with. So when you're talking about the platform team, I got reminded of all the projects that I've been and talking so closely to those specific folks who are, like you said, a small team, but all of them are looking into the security epics in various areas.
Right.
But the way you have actually built it sounds like a lot of graceful performant functions solving the security problems very beautifully. And I was already thinking of so many other use cases that this is solving. So this is, I think, way more than a team could ask from with respect to security. There was this one bit though, which I think we have not discussed and which keeps coming up many times, especially recently. We had a few episodes also in the last season, one episode on threat intelligence aspects. So what about the real-time monitoring? So you're already looking at detecting some of these things, right? And in terms of whether it is configuration and whether in terms of data and stuff like that. How do you tie it to, like, how much of customization did you have to do to build when you were like in your platform in terms of tying it to the real-time monitoring systems that you have, whether it is SIEM or your threat intelligence or like
Right.
or the like?
Building off-the-shelf tools, and we were anyways leveraging AWS API Gateway for our primary API Gateway as well, like for all the ingress. So that kind of like made the job a lot easier. We were already familiar with how to tie it up for the performance monitoring, for security monitoring, and any kind of like WAF rules. All those things were already in place. So I would say it wasn't much of an effort, and we were using Datadog, primarily Datadog tools itself, right? So they had recently launched that like threat monitoring using logs. That time it was in beta, so we were using that to like achieve all these functions. And I would say like being a resource trap team, right? We didn't have the luxury to explore too much on each aspect. So we went ahead with off-the-shelf solutions for at least for security.
Yeah. I think why I was asking this also, and thanks for answering that, is for all the existing teams, right? Whether security teams or engineering teams, platform teams looking forward to do that for medium-sized or even larger sized organizations, how much of a change it is to bring about something like this, like to have a platform like this. And that's why my question was too, because if you integrate, and then how much customization do you need to do on top of it? Is it going to be like another project in itself? Or I think with the products it might be much easier, like if you have an SSP product it might be much easier. But if you're building your platform also, there would be a certain level of customization required.
Right. So rightly said, it all depends on your like maturity in terms of your security journey. If you are at a very advanced stage, I would recommend using a off-the-shelf product. And if you want to build it in-house, like for other things as well, for example, performance monitoring of your SaaS application or for a proper security, like secret monitoring, it is a nice project that can be built in phases. You don't need to do everything all at once. Right? It can be done step by step and can be gradually rolled out. The way we did it, like we built it for one SaaS tool for it. We built a library, a wrapper library with a switch that gave us that capability to like, deploy it gracefully, like one by one phase rollout can happen. So we did all that, and ultimately, what we were able to achieve all of this without disrupting any of the functionality ever. Right. So I would say it's a good piece to begin with. So yeah, one should definitely give it a
Yeah, thanks a lot for answering all the questions. I think I am clear with all the questions that I had, and I hope the listeners were able to have a lot of takeaways from this session. I think we heard that's like a lot of food for thought also for many of us who have so many different, hundreds of SaaS applications, and we are looking at the security from a singular perspective where we're just looking at in-house applications only. Maybe it's time to start thinking about this other side of the attack surface as well. Thanks for joining us today, Abhishek, on Breakpoint.
Thank you, Niju. Thank you for inviting me. It was a great opportunity. And as a closing remark, I will say the threat that arises from SaaS is still latent in nature. Like people are like it exists, but people are not aware about it. So it becomes a bigger security challenge. So yeah, I hope this will help in creating some awareness about that. And it's a step in the right direction.
Great. Thanks for being there in the podcast. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye. Hey folks, that's all we had for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Visit the podcast page for more such interesting episodes. You will find the speaker suggestions and other details in the show notes below. If you're interested in a security challenge of your own or would like to hear from a specific speaker or team, let me know in the comments below. Lastly, if you liked the episode, please go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share with others in the community. It always means a lot when you do that. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, Breakpoint signing off.